Hi there, welcome to Outdoors and Country Living. In this video, I will be showing you how we can our green beans that we grow from our garden. I will be using a raw or cold pack method to do this. So I hope you stick around to see how we can our green beans that we grow in our gardens. First of all, you have to pick your green beans or obtain your green beans somehow. Here we are just snapping them. We only snap off the end that attaches to the green bean plant. Snap them whatever your preference is. Some people snap off both ends, but we only snap off the top that attaches to the plant. And then break them into the size pieces that you want. So here I'm just showing you up close. That's the end that attaches to the plant. On the left, the right side is the bottom of the pod. I'm going to try to do this one-handed. I'm just snapping off the top a little bit. This green bean's not very big, so I'm just going to snap it in half. And we're throwing them into our sink that I'm going to add cold water to wash the beans. We have a lot of beans, so this sink will become full to the top with beans by the time we're done snapping. We're about halfway through our beans that we picked, so I just have them in some cold water here in the sink, and I'm just swishing them around to give them a good wash. Get any dust and dirt off from the garden. All right, the sink is full and I have a helper with me. She loves to help me wash the green beans. This is our granddaughter. She's almost 3 and she's already helping in the kitchen with canning. Nothing like passing on the skills.
All right.
Now that our green beans are washed, we're going to start packing them in jars. These are just clean mason jars. If your food is processed more than 10 minutes in a water bath canner or a pressure canner, you don't necessarily have to sterilize your jars. The canning process does it for you. This is some non-iodized salt. We use pink Himalayan salt at our house. For canning, you want non-iodized salt. The iodine will cloud your food and alter the taste. So into my clean mason jars, well, here's the canner. I've started. The canner is cold. The jars are cold. The water's cold. This is a raw pack or cold pack method. So now we're going to pack the jars with the beans. Just settle the beans down into the jars to get as many in each jar as you can. I find using the palm of my hand seems to work the best. Now, some people are going to say maybe that I'm overpacking my jars to not enough headspace or too much headspace. I've been canning for 28 years. I've canned green beans a few times before. So just pack the green beans in each jar. I leave about a ½ inch headspace. I think canning books are going to tell you 1 inch. Do whatever you feel safe doing. Like I said, I've been canning for 28 years. It's not my first rodeo. Now that we have the beans in the jars, I'm adding a ½ teaspoon of salt, but you can add up to a full teaspoon of salt. Salt is just for taste. It has nothing to do with food safety, food preservation. When you're canning, salt is for taste only. Now I'm adding cold tap water. We live in the country. We have a private well. We have our water tested for our honey business. I know it's good quality water with no contaminants. If you live in the city or have municipal water, it's best to use filtered water. This is cold water. If you have city water, the chemicals they put in it to make it drinkable can alter the taste and clarity and of your canned goods. So be cognizant of that. After you get your jars filled with water, you want to debubble your jars before adding your lids and your rings. Put your lids and rings on fingertip tight, well, basically the ring, fingertip tight. You don't want to crank it down because your lids will buckle in the pressure canner. Again, everything is cold. This is a cold pack method. Sterilization of everything will happen in the canner. So I've got the first layer down in my canner. This is a double-decker canner. I can can 14 quarts at one time. So I'm adding cold water, and I add about 1/4 cup of white distilled vinegar. Since we have well water, it helps prevent clouding of my jars. We do have a water softener, but I've always used vinegar, and it seems to do the trick. So here I'm just adding my second layer of jars. This canner can hold 14 quart jars. Back to the water. I add water about halfway up on my jars in a pressure canner just to make sure it doesn't run dry. But follow your canner's manufacturing guidelines on that because each canner is a little bit different. This is an all-American canner, which we absolutely love. We have a few of them. I'm just positioning the lid on here. There's no gasket on the All-Americans. And I'm just tightening down the lid. And then we will be turning the burner on high. I use a portable burner. The information for that will be in the video description below. Just turn it on high. Wait for the whole thing to heat up. The canner has heated up. I allowed it to vent for 10 minutes before adding the weight. I am using 10 pounds of pressure. There's 10, 15, and 5 on a canner weight. So 10 pounds of pressure. We live in Indiana. If you live above 1,000 feet of elevation, be sure to adjust your canning times and pressure accordingly. And those guidelines will be in the video description below if you don't know what they are. So we're just going to let this come up to pressure. We're building pressure now. Just shy of 5 pounds right now. We're aiming for 10 pounds. So I'm at pressure, 10 pounds. We're going to process these for 25 minutes. So I set a timer for 25 minutes. And I don't want a hard jiggle. I want a A gentle, steady jiggle. So adjust your heat accordingly. I usually have to back down my burner to a setting of between 8 and 9 usually. So 25 minutes is up. I've allowed the canner to naturally fall the pressure back to 0. Then I slightly cock the canner lid for about 10 to 15 minutes, and this helps reduce siphoning. Your jars will be bubbling, and letting them sit in the hot canner with the lid cocked to slowly let steam and heat out really does help prevent the siphoning. So I'm just getting these jars out. I use cutting boards underneath the towels. Because of the type of countertop I have, I need to protect it as much as possible. You just heard a lid pop. That's a good sound. And yes, I have a little one watching TV in the background while I get these hot jars out, just to keep little feet and hands out of the kitchen. So I'm going to let these sit here overnight, about 24 hours or until they're completely cool. Aren't they pretty? You can see that jar right there bubbling a little bit. That is normal. It's just the process of canning. You can see the bright green beans on the left that I haven't canned yet, and these that are canned, they're cooked. Their color changes a little bit. And I think the yellow towel is disguising its green color a little bit. So once I get all of the green beans out and they have cooled, the next day I will remove the bands. And yes, removing the bands is proper technique. Why we do that will also be in the description box below this video. Make sure you click the word more for details. But I remove the bands. Once they're cooled, wash the jars up a little bit if necessary. That's my personal preference, just so my pantry is clean. And then I will transition these jars down to our basement pantry, where we keep all of our home canned food. So that's how I can green beans. I've been doing it for 28 years. It may not be perfect. I may not know everything, but that's how we do it, and it works great for us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. God bless.